वालेकुम सलाम, तशरीफ रखें। All right, Mr. Mohammad Raza, let's start. My first question to you would be, will you like to tell the panel where is the economy of Pakistan heading in the wake of COVID-19?
Sir, basically, as we have seen that our economy has performed at a negative 0.4% rate in 2020. But if you see that 2020 was largely, I believe, dominated by 4 themes, which were not only kind of blessing in disguise for our economy, but it would also help us into the future. The first one being that during COVID-19, Pakistan has been involved in a drive towards innovation. Especially if we look towards that in the medical field, where we have been able to invest into building our indigenous ventilators and are also working towards making COVID vaccines as well. Other than that, a second important theme that has dominated our economy was basically the centralized role of the state bank that it has played into not only by making developing finance as more of a primary function of itself. We have seen through TERF, which was the Temporary Economic Refinance Program, through which we have financed at subsidized rates new investments into the economy. However, if you look at the last 70 years, this was not the role of the state bank that it has played. So in that way, state bank has played an important role in uplifting the economy during this time. Other than that, sir, I believe that COVID has definitely also shifted our government's focus from being a services-based economy towards a manufacturing base as well. Because during all this time, we have seen that our government has been much more focused towards improving the lives of the common laborers that were working in those manufacturing units. They were also subsidizing the loans and also rolling over the loans for such installations as well. And the results are in front of us. Automobile sector, construction sector, and even textile sector, they have recently grown much larger than what services industry has contributed in.
Okay, thank you. My second question would be, what is Magna Carta and what effect, if any, has it had on democracy in the UK?
So Magna Carta, I believe it was signed in 1215. It was against basically certain barons who were rebelling against King John of England, if I'm not wrong. And it had various sections in it which related to, firstly, this was the first time that the divine rights of the king was challenged. Previously, it was believed that he was not answerable to anyone, but after Magna Carta, people established a certain relationship with him to keep him accountable in a manner. Other than that, Magna Carta, especially after the glorious revolution of 1688 and the subsequent passage of the Bill of Rights, has also established the supremacy of parliamentary democracy in the UK.
Okay. Can you talk to the panel for a minute on the Battle of Plassey of 1757 and the role played in it of people like Mir Jafar?
So Battle of Plassey, as you've already mentioned, it took place in 1757 in Bengal. Basically, there were 2 key parties to it. The first was the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dawla, who was also being allied with certain French allies as well. And it was fought against the army of East India Company of Robert Clive. So the French army, it was basically a part of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla because of the 7-year war that was also taking place in the Europe during the same time. Other than that, we have seen that more than 50,000 army of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla was defeated by only 3,000 men of Robert Clive's army, mainly because of the assistance that was lended to Robert Clive through the infamous Mir Jafar, who betrayed the Nawab of Bengal, and it had severe consequences on.
How did he betray the Nawab?
Sir, there are several stories that I have heard regarding that, especially where it's told that he did not properly store the explosive and cartridges of the army of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla, and there was probably a rainstorm or something like that, and he was not able to utilize his strengths. That's what I believe.
Okay, never mind. Now you have studied gender studies and US history.
Yes.
Tell me, who is Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy?
So Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy she is basically a filmmaker by profession. She belongs from Pakistan, and she has won several accolades for the country, especially 2 Oscars for her documentaries. One of them was called Saving Faces, which was about acid burn victims, and the second one, I think it was called A Girl in the River.
Girl in the River.
Related to honor killing. She is a very pro women rights kind of a person for the country, and I believe her work also relates to that.
Good. Now my last question on US history. What was the Boston Massacre, and how will you relate it or compare it to the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy?
So Boston Massacre, it took place basically in 1770 in the port city of Boston, where certain protesters were protesting against some new taxes, especially the Stamp Duty Act, if I'm not wrong. And on that, there was a general, there were certain custom police or some guards of the UK Army, British Army, who were present there, and they retaliated and they fired upon them. It did not cause much deaths, but it certainly enshrined in itself a revolution.
How many people lost their lives?
Sir, if I'm allowed to take a guess, I think it was 5 people.
Okay, 4. All right, 4 or 5. And still they call it a massacre.
Yes.
Come to the second part of my question, please.
Coming towards the second part of the question, which was about the Jallianwala Bagh incident. So basically, there were certain people who were celebrating Baisakhi in the Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, and there were certain acts, especially called the Roulette Acts, that have been passed, where such a large gathering was not allowed. And during that particular festival, General Dyer, he basically closed all the exit points of that bar, and he opened fire at them, and several, I think more than 200 or 300 people they died in that incident.
All right, I'll leave you at that. Thank you, Shahid Saab.
Okay. Muhammad Raza,
Yes, sir.
you are a banker by profession, working as Assistant Director and SVP. So tell us something about monetary policy.
So basically, monetary policy is basically, it relates to these to controlling the supply of money into the economy. There are various tools through which the state bank or any other central bank implements its monetary policy. The first and the foremost being that of controlling the interest rates in the economy. Other than that, they could also control the reserve ratio with the banks as well. Through these, and even through open market operations, they can control the supply of money in order to implement their agenda, which could be an expansionary policy, or it could be a contractionary policy as well.
Okay. How banks can play an active role in development of a country?
So I believe banks, they play the most active role in the development of the economy, because they supply the bloodline that is needed for any industrial growth. They give out debts for various activities, especially business activities that generate not only additional taxes for us, but also generates economic activity, generates employment, and all kind of such measures as well. Other than that, the second role that a bank also plays that is really important, especially in terms of trade, because banks are the settlement point of those trades where you can trade.
Okay. You have also studied American history.
Yes, sir.
Tell us something about Truman Doctrine and Marshall Plan.
So I'll start with the Marshall Plan first. So Marshall Plan was basically a plan in the late 1940s, which was introduced by George Marshall, who was the Secretary of State of US during those era. And it was aimed at, it had a 4-point agenda basically. The first one being that it was to reconstruct the war-torn Europe, especially Western Europe, which included countries like UK, France, and West Germany. Other than that, it also aimed towards stabilizing their currency, which had lost its worth during the World War. And the third agenda was to limit the Soviet influence in that era, because Soviet Union was actively engaging with its allies to build them economically. So probably since the US was trying to control the spread of communism into its allies, so it introduced this plan. I think it was, if I believe that it was worth around $15 billion during that time. Coming towards the second part.
Why it was named as Marshall?
So it was named after that Secretary of State who introduced that policy.
Okay.
Coming towards the second part of the question about the Truman Doctrine. So basically, Harry Truman, he was the president after Franklin D. Roosevelt, and his policy was that in order to limit the spread of communism and to avoid that domino effect of countries falling into the Soviet camp, he should introduce various reforms, especially aid-related programs and such assistance, even military assistance, economic assistance, so that he could build a very strong reputation with its
Most
allies.
important part was providing military assistance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell us something about purchase of Alaska and Florida.
So the purchase of Florida, it was established under the Adam-Onis Treaty in 1819. Where basically Spain agreed with the United States that it would give out its claims in Florida if the US compensates it in Texas. So there was not a monetary value attached to it. However, around $5 million of claims of US citizens towards Spain's, they were written off in that treaty. Whereas as far as the purchase of Alaska is concerned, it took place in 1867. Where the czars of Russia, they were already economically on a downward trend after the Crimean wars that they were fighting. So they wanted to sell off Alaska basically because they thought that in case of a greater European war, they won't be able to defend it. So under that agreement, Alaska was sold for $7.2 million to the US, which was less than 2 cents an acre at that time.
Okay. It is widely believed that movement for Pakistan independence started from Urdu-Hindi controversy. Do you agree with this statement? First tell us something about Urdu-Hindi controversy and then about its significance in terms of creation of Pakistan.
Sir, I certainly agree with your statement. Basically, Hindi-Urdu controversy, it took place in 1867 in the city of Benares, where the United Provinces of Agra and Awadh were planning to put Hindi as an official language and to replace Urdu basically with Hindi as the official language of that state. So basically, this engulfed certain riots among the Hindus and the Muslims, as well as Muslims were proponents of Urdu being kept as the official language since it was written in an Arabic script, while the Hindus, they were promoting it, the same language to be written in the Devanagari script. Coming towards the second part of your question, which was whether it was the beginning of the Pakistan movement or not, I believe so, because if you look at the statements of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who was present during that time in Benares previously, he was of the view that Hindus and Muslims are basically two eyes of a bride, and that bride was India. However, after that, he said that he has come to that conclusion that these two nations are essentially separate and they cannot live together in the future as well. So I believe that this viewpoint, this radical shift of viewpoint of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan is clearly indicative of the fact that Pakistan movement took its birth during that crisis.
Okay. What is meant by fourth wave of feminism and what are its main points?
Sir, I believe there are three main points that define the fourth wave of feminism. The first one being that...
When it started?
Sir, I'm not sure, but I think it was around 2012.
Oh, okay.
It was very recent. But some of the important points of the fourth wave of feminism, the first one being that it It advocates against sexual harassment, against rape, against workplace harassment, and these kind of immoral activities. And the second point of the fourth wave of feminism is it basically relates towards using the online platform by even accusing people. For example, the Me Too movement, the recent Me Too movement, that was also a part of it. And thirdly, it also amalgamates various other genders into its stream, where, for example, men's feminism, it's also a part
Most
of
important parts were women empowerment, reducing gender inequality.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Asra Iqbal.
Thank you, sir. Ji, Mohammad Raza. Raza, you know that the major problem between India and Pakistan is Kashmir. Now, as a Pakistani and a learned Pakistani, what do you think? What could be the solutions for Kashmir issue between India and Pakistan?
So basically, if you see, this problem has long existed for 70 years, and there have been certain ups and downs during this period. But there is one very established conclusion that comes from out of those 7 decades, is that military option is definitely not one of them. Whenever we have tried to involve into a military conflict over Kashmir, it has never benefited the Kashmiris at least. Okay. So, ruling out that option, I believe there are several steps that the Pakistani government could take in terms of promoting its objective of having an independent Kashmir, or having a Kashmir, or basically towards listening towards the wishes of the people of Kashmir, which is also a part of our constitution as well. The first one being, we could definitely establish dedicated Kashmir desks across our embassies, across our councils, where not only the Kashmiri diaspora is mobilized to promote their viewpoint, but also they are being used to highlight the atrocities of human rights violations that the Indian authorities have been taking place. Moreover, I believe that since Kashmir is an international issue, it's not a bilateral issue, various other parties could be involved into resolving that crisis. This could involve the United States, this could involve our mutual friends with India, this should also involve the United Nations as well. And these kind of agencies should be mobilized to promote. The first stage of that, I think it would be that they should defend the dignity of men and women in that area, and to develop them not only economically but also educationally and various other through social mobilization platforms. Then,
Okay, Mohammad Raza, you know that we have a very important and high level forum in Pakistan to deal with this Kashmir issue, and that is Kashmir Committee. In your opinion, to what extent this committee has been successful to raise the issue at the important international forums, and what is the contribution of this committee?
Sir, regarding the successes of that committee, I cannot exactly pinpoint what successes that they have achieved during their tenure, but definitely they have a very well designed and a very organized agenda that they need to pursue, especially in terms of promoting the atrocities of Indians in the international media. Other than that, it also tries to the key objective that this committee tries to achieve is basically to give them a voice. Because if you see, even in that article, this recent Article 370 crisis, the key weapon that the Indians used was to block their voice. They blocked them from social media. They blocked them from using telecommunication. They imposed a curfew on them so that they could not voice what kind of a situation that they're living in. And in that opinion, I think Kashmir activity has played a very active role, and especially when US presidents and various other international leaders gave statements regarding the atrocities that are being conducted in Kashmir.
Okay, Mohammad, geographically, the location of Pakistan is considered to be of prime importance from a world point of view, and particularly after disintegration of USSR, we feel that the importance of Pakistan has further enhanced with reference to Central Asian states. What do you think? how Pakistan can capitalize this geographical importance?
So we have seen the realization of this importance, especially in terms of the Chinese-Pakistan economic corridor, where Pakistan has been providing warm water access towards those parts of China that are not very accessible towards the sea. Such kind of a corridor, such kind of a transit agreement could also take place with various of the CIS states that are itself landlocked, including Kazakhstan and Tajikistan and various other these CIS states. That is one opportunity. Other than that, Pakistan being an energy deficient country, because of the low production of natural gas or other fossil fuels, CIS states they provide a great opportunity for Pakistan, especially in terms of TAPI or these kind of pipelines, where Pakistan could easily access those huge natural reservoirs of fossil fuels at a very low cost. So that's another thing. Thirdly, most of these CIS states that are close to Pakistan, they're Muslim states, and definitely we have a connection on a religious level with them. This can also be capitalized in forming a bloc so as to voice the concerns, especially in the wake of the recent Islamophobia and such kind of events that have been taking place across the world. I think these are some opportunities.
Okay, Raza, the 18th constitutional amendment in Pakistan is considered as a landmark in the constitutional history of Pakistan. Just tell us, what are the salient features of 18th constitutional amendment? That is one. And then how many lists, concurrent lists were there in the 18th constitutional amendment?
So basically, some of the key changes that took place during this 18th Amendment were, firstly, the name of NWFP was changed to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which basically it was a long-voiced concern of the local populace that was addressed. Other than that, greater provincial autonomy, which was the essence of 1973 Constitution, as well as the essence of the formation of the federation of the country, was finally achieved through this. Thirdly, the 18th Amendment has also given us the NFC award as well, under which the provinces are getting a much larger share, and that also very systematically organized, which is not only determined on the basis of the population that was there. Other than that, I believe that 18th Amendment it has also changed the spellings of certain provinces as well, including Sindh and Balochistan. So these are what I can recall at the moment.
Okay, when was the Indus Water Treaty concluded between India and Pakistan?
So Indus Water Treaty, I believe it was concluded in 1960. It was signed in 1960. However, an agreement on the sharing of water was already reached in the Karachi Agreement in 1949, I believe.
There are deserts in Pakistan. Can you name at least 3?
Yes, sir. So there is one Thar desert, which is in district Thar Pakar in Sindh. There is the Cholistan desert, which is in district Bahawalpur. There is the Thal desert in, I believe it's in district Pakar. And if you allow me for a fourth one, I think it's a cold desert in Skardu called Katpana.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Raza, tell me a little about IBA. You did your BBA from there. How did you benefit by it?
So starting with telling you about IBA. So IBA was basically established in 1950, and it was the first business school outside of North America, which gave it a huge distinction, and it promoted the education of business in the country. About my experience at IBA, I think it has largely shaped my personality, especially because I hail from a rural background and I was not very proficient at a lot of things, including presentation skills, including my communication skills. Other than that, a key benefit that IB also gave me was that it promoted in me a sense of critical thinking and analyzing things at a much deeper level rather than at a surface.
Right. My next question is, where do we stand with India recently in our relationship with India, Indo-Pak relations? What is the latest development? Where do we stand today?
So Indo-Pak relations, they have basically been strained after the Article 370 crisis. However, recently there has been a lot of improvement, especially by the use of back-channel diplomacy, where we have seen the ceasefire agreement that took place between the DGMOs of both countries, where we also see that there are minimal violations on the LOC. We have also seen the role of UAE in playing a gap of a bridge, in playing a role of a bridge between the two countries.
Right. What two main water bodies does the Suez Canal connect?
Sir, the Suez Canal, I believe it connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea.
Mediterranean. All right. What do you know about the nationalization of the Suez Canal? Tell me something about the nationalization of the Suez Canal.
Sir, the nationalization of Suez Canal, it basically took place in 1956 when the then Egyptian President Jamal Abdel Nasser basically nationalized the Suez Canal Authority, which was then owned by the British and the United Kingdom. It also got a lot of crises after that. A hue and cry was raised by Britain as well as by French, and they were also planning to attack Egypt by allying with Israel. However, we see that the role of US in mediating this crisis had been really phenomenal, and it avoided a war that could have been really worse for both parties.
What was the exact date when it was nationalized? Do you know the exact date? Can you, or the year at least?
So the year was 1956, but I cannot recall the
date. All right. Are you updated about the latest Suez crisis? What happened?
Yes, sir,
this year?
The latest Suez crisis that took place in early this year, it was where a vessel, I believe it was called Evergreen vessel, it had blocked access of other ships into the Suez Canal because it's a very narrow strip, it's a very narrow body of water through which only one ship can pass at a time. So it had blocked a huge international trade that takes place.
It got stuck up over there. Yes. Right. Tell me something about the 12th Amendment in the US Constitution. Who gave it and when was it?
Sir, I cannot recall at the moment who gave the 12th Amendment.
All right, the first half.
Yes, the first half of the 12th Amendment basically relates to the process of the election of the US President and the US Vice President. Can we
elaborate a little on that?
So basically, after the election, there is an electoral college that is elected, and that electoral college basically votes out for each of the president, and it's not necessary for that electoral college to vote based on their political party, and that's how they elect the U.S. president
and the vice president also simultaneously. Each member has 2 votes, right? Abraham Lincoln, he abolished slavery. Was he successful in doing it?
Sir, he played a great role in the abolition of slavery, especially when he introduced the 13th Amendment into the Congress. However, because of his assassination, he could not live enough to see that being ratified and being implemented. I believe it was Andrew Johnson who saw that happening during that time.
But the discrimination against the blacks continued after that.
Definitely.
Do you agree with me?
Absolutely, sir. The civil rights movement of 1963, the struggle of Martin Luther King, the struggle of Rosa Parks, Miss Rosa Parks, these are all basically that took place because of that inherent discrimination against the African Americans that was still existent in the society.
Right. All right. My last 2 questions relate to economics. What is the per capita income of Pakistan?
So the per capita income of Pakistan last year, it was $1,355.
And what do you understand by circular debt?
So circular debt, it is basically an amalgamation or an overburdening of debts when you are unable to pay, when a certain party in a chain is unable to pay their dues, mainly because of cash problems or because of the cash crunch that they face. For example, in Pakistan, this basically relates towards the energy sector, where the discos are not able to pay the generation companies, and the generation company is not able to pay the fuel supplier companies, and this cycle goes on and on. Because of that, a huge debt of almost 2.6 trillion has accumulated in the country, which is very difficult to be paid off at a very nice rate.
All right, that's all from my side.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Raza, thank you very much.
So it was a pleasure.
All right, let's have a discussion amongst ourselves. Shahid sir, your views.
Thank you, sir. I found him a very articulate personality. He was exceedingly dressed in a very amiable, spoke in a very amiable way, engaged the panel well in a meaningful and productive way. His knowledge with regard to various issues is also commendable. And overall, I think his assessment, according to my point of view, is that it ranges between 60 to 70%. One particular shortcoming which I noticed, that was with regard to his movement of hands, that he needs to curtail or at least moderate.
I have already noted
That is one of the basic issues. Especially his knowledge with regard to one further point which I observed that was with regard to analytical skills, especially on my question with regard to Urdu-Hindi controversy. He spoke very well, and I was really impressed. Considering and taking cognizance of all the points, I would rate him between 60 to 70% out of total 100. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Young, smart person, very well dressed. He spoke very well, but somehow at some point of time he had a little problem of fluency also at some places, but generally he spoke well. He had very good knowledge about his subjects, general knowledge, and overall his knowledge is also very good. He could analyze certain very important national issues, economic issues, and other issues very well. And his, I think, critical analysis led him to some good conclusions also. And he was logical. He was quite confident, composed, and he could sustain pressure also, because very difficult questions were put to him, particularly of national and international importance. So from that point of view, if I rate him, he is a very good candidate and should be around overall 78%.
Thank you.
Ji, thank you. Overall, I think his performance in the interview was good. He had a good general knowledge, good command and fluency in English. He could engage in discussion on different issues. But he had this superfluous use of, he kept on repeating, I believe.
I believe.
Instead of, you see, differentiating his opinion, where you can use the word I believe. But about facts, you can't say I believe. He was
as
overusing
he said while answering your question
Yes.
about the Suez Canal,
Ji.
I believe it connects the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. It's a fact. It's not a theory.
Exactly.
So you don't need to use the word I believe.
Exactly. So that shows that he wasn't sure about. That gives the impression that one is not sure, although he was clear about it. There is no second opinion about it. And then again, he was overusing the phrase, allow me to guess. He shouldn't have overused this. Otherwise, he was a little nervous in the beginning. Then he regained his confidence and composure. And I would really rate him 70, give him 70 marks out of 100.
Okay, thank you. Now let me start with the negatives. 3 things I observed. You agree with me that he was overusing the phrase I believe. आपने नोट किया हैंड जेस्चर्स, एक्सेसिव मूवमेंट थी उसके थोड़े हैंड जेस्चर्स की. नॉर्मली हम कहते हैं आप इधर उनको अपनी लैप में रखें. तीसरा, his eye contact was not very good.
Yes.
बात इनके साथ कर रहा है, देख नीचे रहा है. Eye contact मेरे नज़दीक तो you got to look in the eyes of the person who you are talking to. And also engage the rest of the panelists. ये तीन चीज़ें थी. Otherwise, I found him full of confidence, very well composed, and on a number of issues, on a majority of the issues, he managed to engage the panel very well and in a meaningful manner. Good knowledge base, and where he knew the answers, he was focused and he spoke with authority. And I think he is a good candidate overall. Thank you.